Hello, dear. So, Leo, I want you to read this carefully because I do not say this lightly. Something is arriving tomorrow. And whatever it turns out to be for you specifically, it is significant enough that I felt the need to sit down and prepare you for it in advance. This is not a vague, general feeling I am passing along. This is a distinct sense of something crossing over from potential into reality within the next 24 hours. And I want you to walk into tomorrow with your eyes open instead of being caught off guard by something your own life has actually been quietly building toward for weeks. Think back over the last little while, honestly. Have you noticed a strange kind of stillness lately? Almost like the calm that settles in right before something shifts. Sometimes that stillness feels peaceful, and sometimes it feels unsettling. A sense that you are waiting for something without being able to name exactly what it is. That feeling is not your imagination, Leo. It is your own awareness picking up on momentum that has already been set into motion. Momentum that is about to become visible tomorrow in a way it has not been visible until now. What has felt like waiting is actually the final stretch before arrival, and tomorrow marks the point where that waiting finally ends. I want to ground this in something real, because a message like this deserves more than vague reassurance. Picture someone who had been anxiously waiting to hear back about something important, a job opportunity, a decision from someone significant in their life, a resolution to a situation that had been unresolved for weeks. They had almost stopped checking their phone obsessively, had nearly convinced themselves that no news was coming at all, and then, completely without warning, on one ordinary day that looked exactly like every other day before it, the answer finally arrived, and it changed the direction of everything that came after. When people describe moments like that later, they almost always say the same thing. It happened so suddenly that they almost missed how prepared they actually already were for it, because the waiting itself had quietly done the work of getting them ready. Tomorrow carries that same kind of energy for you specifically. Something that has been building beneath the surface, whether that is a decision someone else has been making about you, a piece of information you have been waiting on, or an internal shift within yourself that finally reaches its tipping point, is going to become clear. I want to be honest with you about something important here. This does not necessarily mean something dramatic and loud. Sometimes the most significant shifts arrive quietly, through a simple message, a short conversation, or a small moment that only reveals its full importance once you look back on it later. Do not dismiss something just because it does not initially feel like the huge event you are expecting. Money and career carry real weight in what is approaching. If you have been waiting on a response related to work, an application, a proposal, a conversation about compensation, pay close attention to your phone and your messages tomorrow specifically, because this window favors communication landing exactly when you least expect it. If you have felt uncertain about your financial direction lately, tomorrow may bring a piece of clarity that shifts how you are thinking about your next steps, not necessarily a dramatic windfall, but a clear signal about which direction actually makes sense for you moving forward. I want to prepare you honestly for the possibility that what arrives tomorrow might not feel purely comfortable in the very first moment, even if it ultimately turns out to be exactly what you needed. Sometimes clarity requires facing something you had been quietly avoiding. Sometimes an answer arrives and it is not the one you were secretly hoping for, but even in that case, it still moves you forward out of the uncertainty that has been sitting with you for far too long. And forward movement, even when it looks different than expected, is still genuinely valuable. As we move into the second part of this message, I want you to hold on to the sense that tomorrow is not just another ordinary day passing by. It is a threshold, a point where something that has been building quietly finally becomes visible. In part 2, we are going to talk about exactly what areas of your life this is most likely to touch, how to recognize it clearly the moment it arrives so you do not accidentally overlook it, and how to specifically prepare yourself so you are ready to meet it fully. Let's go deeper into this, Leo, because I do not want to leave you with only a vague sense of anticipation without giving you something specific to actually watch for as tomorrow approaches. One of the clearest areas where this shift is likely to show up is in communication, specifically a message or a conversation that carries more weight than what you typically receive on an average day. Pay attention to your phone tomorrow in a way you might not usually bother to. If someone reaches out who has been quiet for a while, respond quickly rather than letting the message sit unanswered out of habit or distraction, because timing matters significantly during a window like this. Let me offer a grounded example of how quickly something like this can unfold for a real person. Picture someone who had submitted a proposal for an important project weeks earlier and heard absolutely nothing back, to the point where they had mentally written off the opportunity entirely and moved their focus elsewhere. Then, on one unremarkable Tuesday morning, an email arrives completely out of nowhere, not just accepting the proposal, but expanding it into something significantly larger than originally discussed. That person had spent weeks assuming silence meant rejection, when in reality, the silence was simply the natural delay before a much bigger yes than they had originally hoped for. This is exactly the kind of pattern building around your current situation. Delayed communication that arrives suddenly and carries more weight than you were expecting. Career situations deserve particular attention as this window approaches. If you have been feeling uncertain about your current path, wondering whether to stay where you are or pursue something different, tomorrow may bring a piece of information that helps settle that uncertainty, not necessarily by handing you a complete answer, but by revealing one clear signal that points you meaningfully in a specific direction. Pay attention to conversations, even brief or seemingly unimportant ones, because something someone says in passing could carry far more significance than the casual tone in which it is delivered. Money continues to weave through this period as well, though I want to be honest that the financial piece of what is approaching may show up more subtly than dramatically. This could look like receiving information that changes how you are thinking about a financial decision, learning something that shifts your confidence about a purchase, an investment, or a financial commitment you have been considering. It could also show up more directly, an unexpected payment, a bill that turns out lower than anticipated, a piece of good financial news landing at a moment you were not specifically expecting it. Either way, pay attention to your financial situation tomorrow specifically, because this window favors clarity arriving where confusion has been sitting for a while. Relationships deserve real focus here too, because what is approaching often touches the emotional core of your life just as much as the practical side. If there is unresolved tension with someone close to you, a friend, a family member, a partner, tomorrow carries real potential for that tension finally beginning to shift, whether through a conversation that finally happens or through your own internal clarity about how you actually want to move forward with that relationship. If you are single and have been wondering whether someone new is on the horizon, stay unusually open to interactions tomorrow that might otherwise feel ordinary, because sometimes significant connections begin in moments that do not initially feel significant at all. I also want to prepare you honestly for the fact that what arrives tomorrow might require you to make a decision rather than simply receive good news passively. Sometimes clarity comes in the form of a choice being placed directly in front of you. And while that can feel like pressure in the moment, it is actually a sign of respect from life itself, trusting you to handle something significant rather than simply handing you an outcome without any active participation from you. If you find yourself facing a decision tomorrow that feels heavier than usual, do not rush it out of anxiety, but do not avoid it either, because this window rewards thoughtful, timely action far more than either impulsiveness or prolonged hesitation. There is also a theme of internal readiness running through this period that deserves attention. You may notice that you already feel strangely calm about whatever is coming, even without knowing exactly what it is yet. Trust that calm, because it is often a sign that some part of you has already been preparing for this moment longer than your conscious mind has been aware of. That inner steadiness is not naivety. It is confirmation that you are more ready for what tomorrow holds than your anxious thoughts might be telling you in these final hours before it arrives. As we move toward the final part of this message, I want you to hold on to the sense that tomorrow is close, not distant, not abstract, but genuinely close enough that staying alert over the next day could make a real difference in how fully you receive whatever is coming. In part 3, we're going to talk about exactly how to prepare yourself mentally and practically for this window, and I will leave you with something clear and actionable to carry with you the moment this video ends. Here is something important that I want to leave you with, Leo, because preparing for something significant is not just about waiting anxiously for it to arrive. It is about actively positioning yourself to meet it well when it does. A lot of people, when they sense something big approaching, either spiral into anxious overthinking or numb themselves out completely to avoid feeling the anticipation at all. Neither of those responses actually serves you here. What this window asks of you instead is a kind of grounded readiness, staying present and aware without letting anxiety take over the process entirely. Let me offer a grounded example of what this actually looks like in practice. Picture someone who sensed a significant conversation or decision was approaching and spent the days leading up to it consumed with anxious what-if scenarios, imagining every possible outcome, rehearsing responses to situations that had not even happened yet. By the time the actual moment arrived, they were mentally exhausted before it even began, which made it harder to respond clearly and confidently in the moment that actually mattered. Compare that to someone who sensed the same kind of significant moment approaching, but chose instead to simply stay present, continuing their normal routine while remaining open and alert, rather than spiraling into anxious anticipation. When their moment arrived, they met it with a clear head and steady presence, which allowed them to respond far more effectively than if they had exhausted themselves worrying beforehand. That difference in approach often determines how smoothly someone moves through a moment like the one approaching you tomorrow. So here's what I want you to actively do between now and tomorrow. First, resist the urge to obsessively predict exactly what is coming, because that kind of mental rehearsal tends to create more anxiety than clarity, and it rarely matches what actually unfolds anyway. Second, stay reachable tomorrow specifically. Keep your phone nearby, check messages you might normally let sit, and be ready to respond promptly if something important comes through. Third, get proper rest tonight rather than staying up consumed with anticipation, because you will meet tomorrow far more capably from a place of genuine steadiness than from a place of exhaustion. I also want to give you something practical to hold on to, not just an internal mindset shift. If there is a decision you already know is likely to come up, take a few quiet minutes tonight to genuinely reflect on what you actually want, not what you think you should want, not what would please someone else, but what genuinely feels right and true to you specifically. If there is a message you have been meaning to send to someone, consider sending it before tomorrow rather than waiting to see if they reach out first. Because sometimes you are meant to be the one who opens the door rather than simply waiting for it to open on its own. Trust that the timing of you finding this message today was not accidental. Out of everything competing for your attention, you found your way here right before this window opens. And that timing matters because it means part of you was already sensing that something significant was close, even before you had a clear way to name it. The version of you on the other side of tomorrow, more informed, more settled, and genuinely closer to exactly where you are meant to be, is nearer than it currently feels. And the way you choose to move through these final hours, with grounded presence, instead of anxious spiraling, is what determines how smoothly you step into whatever tomorrow actually brings. Before you go, I want you to do one simple thing to help ground this energy. If this message feels like it is speaking directly to something you have already been sensing in your own life, comment the words, "I am ready" below this video, and let that be your way of meeting tomorrow with steadiness instead of fear. I would also genuinely love to know, what part of your life do you feel this is most likely to touch? Your career, your finances, a relationship, or simply a decision you have been sitting with quietly? Share it in the comments, because your answer might be exactly what someone else scrolling through today needs to read before their own tomorrow arrives. And if this message resonated with you, make sure you subscribe to this channel so you never miss the next message that reaches you at exactly the right moment. Leo, whatever is coming tomorrow, you are more ready for it than you currently feel. And by this time tomorrow, you will understand exactly why this message found you today.